Hey guys, welcome back to Just for Fun. I'm Matt. This is Jeskai Delver, which is a list I'm sure you've seen before. I modeled this after Caleb D's version, and it's pretty similar. The lands are a little different because I don't have Scalding Tarns and Arid Maces and stuff, so the mana is not exactly right. So that's something I'll look to improve. I do need to get that, like the Zendikar, original Zendikar fetch lands, but it's hard to pull the trigger, right? Because you know at some point in a money grab they're gonna reprint them, right? You know it's gonna happen, so it's kind of like, maybe I don't want to buy in at the current prices. That said, we have pretty formulaic deck, right? And I was finally able to pick up some Snapcaster Mages and Geist of St. Traphs, so I was able to make this happen. Thanks, Aether Revolt boosters. Basically, the deck it used to be called a tempo deck or aggro control, because it can switch up roles, and now sometimes it's called tempo. There's a lot of different ways to call this kind of deck, but it employs a very typical strategy in most matches where basically you're trying to stick a threat. So in the 1 mana slot we have Delver, which with 26 spells has a pretty good chance of flipping. Delver, Swift Sphere, which works well with all the spells, or Geist of St. Traft, and then ride that threat to victory, right? So these are hard to interact with because they come down quickly. This is hard to interact with because it's hexproof. And this is not really a threat so much as a spell. This is just 4 more copies of spells that happened to attack or block sometimes, but most of the time this is spells. And how do we interact is we have just a little bit of dig, 6 cards that are digging. We have removal. Our removal suite is Path, Bolt, Helix, and Is It Charm, sort of. This is like a versatile card that I stuck in there over the second negate because I just think main deck it's a little better. You can sort of spell pierce with this, or you can shock a creature, or you can filter if you need to. It's just a nice versatile card. Remand is a way to protect your guy. Negate is a way to protect your guy. Cryptic is a way to protect your guy, or tap your opponent out, or bounce a problem permanent, or draw cards, or just discard just does everything. So it's a pretty straightforward to play in a sense. I mean, I've played a lot of Delver decks, so you get kind of used to it. It's probably pretty easy to learn how to play, I would say, compared to a lot of other things. Mutagenic is actually more of a counter spell in the deck. It's there to protect your guy from lightning bolt, basically. Occasionally it can be the last couple points of damage or what have you. So it's a nice effect as a one of, and typically takes people by surprise. Playing white allows you in the sideboard to play some of the best hate cards in Modern, like Rest in Peace and Stony Silence. Now, I have Blind Obedience in here. I know that obviously Splinter Twin is not legal anymore, but there are still times when this is good. This is great against Affinity. This is great against a lot of aggressive decks. It also helps you, if you're keeping your pressure up, it's going to help you get through blockers and whatnot. So we're almost never extorting with it, but it's possible, I guess. Wear, Tear, Pithing Needle, just a bunch of good answers in the board against whatever you need. So versatile deck. I would call it the kind of deck that's decent against almost everything and probably horrible against not too many things. I'd say Tron is a pretty tough matchup, but even then, if you can get under them, you might be okay. That's how that works. Now, I like this style deck so much, I wanted to try to copy it, but change the colors. The one big plus with playing red here is the reach of Bolt and Helix that allows you to just finish the game. But what if we had like beefier threats and better removal instead? So this is my version of the deck. I basically transposed that deck with similar numbers of cards, right? So we have the 7 1-mana threats. Instead of Swiftspear, I went with this, Narnum Renegade. Now, I know this is a bit of a weird choice, but it's in a deck with a bunch of fetch lands. It can often be a 1-mana 2/3 Death Touch, which is not bad. Because Swiftspear, let's be real, usually it's attacking as a 2/3. Sometimes it's a 3/4, but most of the time it's just 2/3. And this is harder to block because it will trade with anything. And sometimes you need to get rid of a big ground creature, and this is a good way to do that. Just leave it back, and you're there. You're good. Now, we have the same six. We have 6 draw spells, but instead of Sleight of Hand, I went with Thought Scour because we're playing 2 Tassigers. So these are kind of in the Geist of St. Traff spot. And for the other 2 Geist of St. Traffs, what we have here is a Scavenging Ooze, which is, just a good hate creature against graveyard strategies, gain you back some life, grows out of control, can be a big threat in the late game. And Ashiok, which is fun because it's just like there's some decks that just can't answer it. It's great against control, and this can take a game over on its own also. As far as counter spells, we've got the Remands and the Cryptics, but instead of Negate and Charm, I've got some Thoughtseize and Inquisition, which is just, great disruption, great way to get rid of problem cards that you can't deal with. And it works almost like a preemptive counterspell a lot of the time, so kind of similar effect. For removal, we've got 2 Abrupt Decays, 3 Smothers. I guess, Abrupt Decay is straight up better, so maybe it should be 4, but I don't have them, so I just did it this way. I guess I should probably pick up a couple more Abrupt Decays. Pulse is just a great one of Pulse I took out of like Jund, right? Is just a great way to deal with basically anything, or a bunch of tokens, right? And then we've got the new star, which is Fatal Push, right? So this card is going to be showing up a lot in Modern. A great way to the advantage of white is usually the sideboard and having access to Path, but this makes you need Path less, and it's better in the early game than Path because you're not ramping your opponent. So I wanted to try out having 10 main deck removal spells plus the Snapcasters. It's gonna be pretty easy to beat most creature-based decks, and so in the board we have some more counter spells to interact, a couple more cheap removal spells should we need them against some big creature deck. We've got some Duress for more disruptions, surgicals, and things to natural state to get rid of artifacts, and one of Golgari Charm. This was in the main before over the Mutagenic Growth, and I liked it a lot, so I might switch that back. Because you can always find some way to make this card really useful, whether it's protecting yourself from a Wrath, blowing up an enchantment, killing all the tokens. It's really done a lot of work for me. So between the 2 decks, honestly, I'm not sure which is better. I think they're very close, but I enjoy playing the Bug Delver deck more, mostly because I made it. But it just feels very powerful, and I've come back from the brink in a lot of the times. I had a match against the blue-white-red Delver, and I was at 1 both times with my opponent at 20 and came back and won. So luck, skill, victory, who knows? But it worked out. And anyway, so in the comments, please let me know which version do you like better? Which would you play? I'm going to record with both of them, obviously. But let me know what you think. Peace, love, have a good day.